Well, the Cleveland Browns got done with the 2023 NFL draft, and they had some big news dropping. Jedrick Wills will have his fifth-year option picked up. We will break that down. Jeff and I will talk about what this means for the new draft picks and some of the guys in the offensive line room, as well as what does this mean for the long-term viability of Jedrick Wills as the future left tackle of the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about it all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LLB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd, Mr. Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. Of course, 92.3 The Fan, on-air talent. The Barbershop can be heard every Saturday morning on The Fan, so make sure you're checking that out. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by the fine folks at FanDuel, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. Business to get here to today. Some breaking Cleveland Browns news. And I'm going to have to take a little bit of an L on this one. It is what it is. G. Bush, let the fine folks let them know, of course, what is in store here today as we get another week started.
Well, look, one thing that we did not see is the Browns take a linebacker in the draft and really haven't done anything as far as free agency and bringing new linebackers in. Mahmoud Diabate, is this a sleeper name that you guys should be looking out for as a linebacker that could potentially make this roster? We'll talk about that coming up as well. And then we'll get to the logjam. Let's be real. There is a little bit of a logjam at offensive line. The Browns took 2 offensive linemen in the draft, over the weekend. And so now we'll go ahead and review the State of the Union address for offensive line. What does that depth chart look like? We'll go ahead and prognosticate and tell you who we think where guys will fall and how that will work out going into the next year. But first, Jeff, before we get to any of that, we got to talk about the big mainstream news, and that is the Browns pick up the option for Jedrick Wills. And as you can see here, this is per Jeremy Fowler. It's all over the internet. The Browns are picking up the 5th-year option on left tackle Jedrick Wills. This guarantees a salary of $14.175 million for 2024 for the former number 10 overall pick. When I look at this move, Jedrick Wills, to me, and this I don't really get into it with Browns fans a lot. There's a couple of positions that I'm not going to argue with you about. One of those is offensive lineman and defensive lineman. There's a couple of people that I pay attention to. Most of those guys that I reach out to have either played at the Division I level or played at a high level, or they're just flat out Hall of Famers, right? So when people talk about offensive line play and whether Jedrick Wills and why it's a smart move. Listen, if you've never been in the trenches, you didn't have to touch nobody hand to hand. I'm not going to count on whether or not you know what you're talking about when it comes to O-line play. At the end of the day, Jedrick Wills at the number 10 pick has not performed up to standard for a number 10 pick. It's not the fact that he does not have some tools and traits that can go a long way into making him a really good tackle. It's just the fact that it's between his ears and it's between his shoulder pads. I need you to finish plays. I need you to finish blocks. I need you to finish it. And if you aren't missing, or if you don't know what you're doing, finish the play. Hey, go hit somebody. At the end of the day, that's the thing that irks me most about Jedrick Wills is I consistently see him stopping in the middle of plays and not finishing plays as a lineman. You guys can say what you would like of it. Well, maybe he can do something, or maybe he'll figure it out. Look, the Browns are just hedging their bet there. All right, $14.175 million. Look, You got another guy in Jack Conklin who has been injured the last 3 years. He has injury issues. Jedrick Wills have had ankle injuries. He's been playing on one bad wheel at times. So there's a reason why there's a guy named DeJuan Jones that is actually going to be on this roster, because they don't have a solidified home run approach at what they're going to have moving forward at left tackle. So for me, I think, this is a play where the Browns are saying, okay, we'll pick that 5th-year option up. If you turn out to be something good, we will go ahead and continue and try to re-sign you long term. If not, we can move you on from you after this year or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, I think when you look at the depth charts and the depth pieces that they brought in, I think the Cleveland Browns want to have as much talent and as much depth as they could in this draft. And they said, listen, we'll figure it out. We'll give you a 5th year to play yourself into some big money or not. So I think, am I really ecstatic about Jedrick Wills' play? Not really. Do I think he can be a serviceable, solid veteran? Yes, if he continues to grow and listen to the tutelage of Bill Callahan and decide to finish plays, I think that he can be above average left tackle. But for this move, the Browns took this move, and it's gonna be left to be shown what exactly they go do. Because if you're gonna give him this money, somebody else has to have the money taken away. So you got to look at the receiving core. You got to look at other places where you might have some issues where, some guys may not get that money because they gave Jedrick the money. Your thoughts, Jeff?
First things first, look, I'll take a little bit of an L here. Everything I heard, this wasn't going very well. And same people I was hearing from is that maybe things tipped a little bit in Jedrick Wills' favor when the Browns made the move to acquire Elijah Moore, and then we're dropping from pick 42 in the draft. I'm sorry, pick 43 in the draft to pick 74. I don't get the fanfare here and like all the excitement for this pick. Year 3 is the most crucial year of a guy in the NFL. We just saw year 3 from Jedrick Wills, and here we are with the same old questions, the same old concerns. Gee, you know it. I know it. We've talked to Joe Thomas about it. Every now and then it's like you're watching something and it's like, why is he the only one on pause? Like literally he's on pause and nobody else is. The commitment and, you want to say, versus the market, his play, this, that, I just don't see it. I don't, can he come out this year and absolutely bust it out the park and shut everybody up? Sure. He certainly possibly can do. And look, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Some of this is on the Cleveland Browns. You drafted somebody to play left tackle who's never played left tackle before. So if it hasn't gone to the point where he is a slam dunk, no brain player, well, part of that's because you drafted somebody and asked him to do something that he's never done before. You can't bank on him because he was a very good right tackle to all of a sudden become a very good left tackle. You ask offensive linemen, what's the first thing they say? You know what? Spend the entire day doing something the opposite hand than you are. So if you're right-handed, spend your entire day being left-handed. Let me know how easy that is. The money, my fear with the money is that this could cost you somebody somewhere else. I honestly believe I could get someone at $7 million to give me what Jed Wills will in 2024 at 14.3. I believe I can get the same player for 50% of the money. Now, if that's going to cost us somebody somewhere, then I'm aggravated. But look, Jed, it's a clean slate. Obviously, all the pressure's off of him. So there should be no reason for him to not excel this year. He doesn't have to worry about the next year. He knows he's getting every dime of this rookie contract. So go out and get it done. And, there's excuses made for offensive linemen who come in here and play well and say, oh, look at that. Well, Bill Callahan really coached him up. Well, what's the excuse that Jedrick Wills hasn't reached, the levels that he has if he hasn't? You guys want to use Bill Callahan as an excuse when things go well, but nobody wants to talk about the fact a player's not performing well and they have a great offensive line coach. So it seems like some people want to have it both ways. At the end of the day, I was wrong here. Jed gets his money. Jed gets his 5th-year tag. But, it's one where, I'm not in line with the move the Browns made here.
Just because they make the move don't mean like you got to agree with it. There's a
Of
lot of
course
stuff.
not. I just, look, I mean, there's moves that are made, but you cannot tell me he is a $14.5 million left tackle. I'm sorry.
He's and sometimes once again, this is the thing about when you're doing shows and different things.
I think Orlando Brown makes $15 million a year. You're telling me Jed Wills is in that class? Come on.
But here's the thing. Once again, I don't think, if you go ask them, they picked up that option, but I don't think you go out and get another tackle and you stockpiling offensive linemen as if you were completely 1,000% sure that
it don't mean that they're not hoping Dawan Jones is a left tackle down the line. And to everybody else, well, Dawan Jones was only a right tackle. We're talking about a guy who's only a right tackle who hasn't excelled at left tackle. So come on, guys.
Yeah, so we'll see if it works out, and we'll see how it goes. I like the fact that he did hedge his bet, and we'll see what Jedrick Wills does in order to, improve and get better at his craft, and hopefully he has a bounce back year.
Absolutely. We're going to switch it up here. Obviously, got a lot to get to here, kicking off another week here at Locked On Browns. All the new traffic, and there has been a ton. We're closing in on 6,000 followers, and I'm sure subscribers. It's got to be well over 100 here over the draft coverage weekend. Appreciate all the new folks sticking around. And please stick around 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. We've been here since 2017, and we ain't going nowhere. Like I said before, Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's right, $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Look, plenty of ways to do it. They put out great promotions every day. The site, it's simple. You get your pay right away. Look, I mean, you can put together lineups. You can put together a same game parlay, 1, 2, 3 players. Imagine what you could have done yesterday with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, that they just walked into Sacramento and just reminded them that they are little brother. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. Thank you for making the Locked On Brown podcast your first listen of each and every day. Let's get to the offensive line. We talked a little bit about the offensive line earlier in the previous segment about Jedrick Wills and what is it that the Cleveland Browns want to do as far as picking that option up. So let's get to, kind of the State of the Union address. A lot of moving parts. Jedrick Wills back in the fold. Dawan Jones is actually in the fold as well. So now you see the two names in green, Dawan Jones and Luke Whippler. How is that? Is it Whippler?
Whippler.
We found out Whippler.
Whippler.
Gotcha. Whippler, Luke Whippler is there, as you can see on that depth chart. So take a look at your starting offensive line. You got a left tackle, Jedrick Wills, left guard, Joe Bitonio. Ethan Pochich is your center. Right guard is Wyatt Teller, and right tackle is Jack Conklin.
There's 5.
There's 5 right there. If we say 5 right there, Jeff, I would say I trust 4. I think you can really, all of the rest of those guys have either made some sort of all pro, made some sort of all, something, and very highly rated, at least in the top 5 in their position. Jedrick Wills has yet to do that. Been average so far, but we'll see where that leads to. Dawan Jones is penciled in right behind, and I didn't make this. I didn't create this. This is our lads. He got him right behind Jedrick Wills. Wes Martin is your left guard on the second unit. And then, Luke Whippler goes right in ahead of Nick Harris. Drew Forbes is there, who got a lot of minutes. And
it feels like Drew Forbes has been in Cleveland for a decade already.
James Hudson been here a while too.
Yep. Like I feel like James, big right. Game.
So look, think about this. I didn't create this either. Whippler, they have over Nick Harris. And then you take a look at your second unit, a familiar name. Michael Dunn is a familiar name.
Mm-hmm.
They have Joe Haig, Dawson Deaton.
Joe Haig was signed last offseason to a 2-year deal. This is actually his second year, and we've never even seen a guy.
Never seen him. And then you got Tyrone Wheatley Jr. So right now, they got a lot of guys that are, in here. How at most, Jeff, how many guys do you think they'll carry on the roster in terms of just offensive linemen?
Well, normally your number is around 9. And so, my thought process here is obviously Wills is going to be here. Obviously, Batonio is going to be here. Obviously, Ethan Poster is going to be here. Obviously, Wyatt and, of course, Jack are going to be here. There's your 5. The 2 rookies are going to be here. Juwan Jones and most likely Whippler is going to be here. So that gets you to 7. Martin had a connection with Bell Callahan playing in, with the Washington Commanders. Does that mean he's a lock? No. Does it mean he's got a good probability? In my opinion, yes. Can play left guard, can play right guard. That puts you to 8. James Hudson. I'm not sure they're ready to give up a James Hudson. We saw some times last year where they're using James Hudson as a move tight end and a goal line. And I remember he beat the living daylights out of that poor kid. So they get you at 9 right there. Drew Forbes has been here forever and a day. You think that time is maybe probably past. Like I said, Joe Haig, it's a 2-year deal. They can move on from it now. Deaton, he's in a terrible spot. He's a 4th center on this team. He does have versatility to play other spots, but at this point, man, that kid was out of the building for a year with an ACL. He's going to come back to camp, and he's going to be an extreme long shot. Nick Harris, it's terrible. The opportunity was there for you. And then one injury, you had your chance. You were going to be the starter. Boom, gone. The NFL is a merciful business in those respects. Michael Dunn was brought back.
Yep.
Michael Dunn was brought back. So that makes you think some things. But also what you do is, all right, say you have an injury at one of the guard positions. Even if it is not, say, right away that Martin goes in or even a Michael Dunn, maybe Ethan Posick is your first guard in as a reserve. That brings Luke Whippler in. So, I mean, they're going to keep most likely 9. You're going to dress 8. But when you get to the rookies, that's 6 and 7. I'm assuming Hudson stays. And then you're finding that other guy who plays the interior. Do they like Wes Martin better than they might like Michael Dunn? Those are probably the 2 guys realistically battling it out here for the 8th and for 8 and 9, but also as who dresses on game day. They've always had guys around here for a while. Like I said, Drew Forbes, but the Browns, you just got to. These guys will all be here. You're gonna have to make some moves. Maybe one of these guys could bring it back a little bit of capital. Maybe at a potential, a draft pick. I mean, if they play X amount of snaps for your team and you move them over Labor Day weekend, but it is a crowded room, Garrett.
Yeah, it's a crowded room, but we also got to take a look at consideration. The only guy who has not been hurt on this offensive line for the most part is Joe Batonio.
Death, taxes, and JB.
Ethan Pochis was out a little bit last year.
Yep.
Wyatt Teller has had injuries the last 2 years.
Exactly.
Conklin has had injuries over the last 4 years. Wills has been banged up as well. So, you can never have enough of these guys. Maybe you can hide a stash, a couple of them on a practice squad, but they have injuries. They've had injury issues in the past. So I think what the Browns have done is, and this is one of the main things we talked about the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today, is that the Cleveland Browns have done something for the first time that I don't think they've had an opportunity to do. They've drafted in a lot of positions, and previously they've drafted positions where those guys they were counting on heavily to contribute early.
Dawan Jones would be a star in the old days. Dawan Jones would be a day one starter.
Yep, that would be a guy that they would be like, hey, we got to pencil in. Now you take a look at the O-line, take a look at the D-line, take a look at the receiving room. Everybody is going to be competing for reps. If you miss a day,
there are not many openings.
If you miss a day of camp, you're going to be light years behind. If you miss a preseason game, you're not even going to probably make the roster. And the fact that they're going to keep all 90 of these guys until the last minute is also going to create more competition because everyone believes they still have an opportunity to play or make the squad. So, the Browns have now had a depth chart where now there's a lot of bodies, especially in the trenches in a wide receiver, where now you're going to have to fight, claw, scratch for your position.
Oh, there's no doubt. And, look, and this is very advantageous because, look, if you were anybody fighting for a roster spot on the Cleveland Browns, you got 4 chances to prove yourself. Browns have 4 preseason games this year. That it worked out well for them in that regard. And I don't think they want to play into the big boys. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd be stunned how much playing time this offensive line sees in the summer. So it's going to be a good battle. And the best thing that could be advantageous for the Browns is that somebody comes calling and either offers them a pick, and there's a chance for the pick to increase in value, or they can get something because they should be able to move one or two. Look, Nick Harris, you hope somebody else gets the bad news the Browns got this year in August. Oh, your starting center went down. Well, here's a guy. He's ready to go. The Browns they had to move on because, you get outplayed when you only got your only one opportunity. It's, the NFL, again, it's just a cruel business. And a lot of it comes down to health. Nobody saw Ethan Posick coming in, and he was signed like right before the draft last year and being the Browns starting center. And if he was, nobody saw him coming in excelling like he did. So things just work in a crazy, crazy way. We're going to flip it up here. We're going to get to segment 3, get to a little linebacker talk here because I think we all got duped a little bit. I think we all thought we were going to see a little action there, during the 256 picks. We didn't get to see that. We'll continue to roll on through here. We'll get to that next segment. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. To all the day oneers, you make the show what it is. Obviously, to all the new traffic, follow in suit. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Make sure you have your notifications on. Get active in the comments. All the audio listeners, whatever your favorite podcast platform is, make sure you are subscribed and checking it out because we are available on every one of them, and we are available always free.
Locked On Browns podcast, your team every single day. Let's get to something that I think people were looking at, and it was one of the main topics and main themes in the draft, and people were like, hey, look, I know we moving around and we doing some things, man. What are we doing at linebacker? We have not seen any linebackers taken really in free agency. We have not seen any of the linebackers as well. Let's take a look at this. Mahmoud Diabate is a guy who's an individual who I really believe is an individual that could be possibly a sleeper when you look at this particular draft. Now, take a look at his relative athletic score, and you'd see it here. He has really decent long size arms. His composite speed is great. So you look at his 40-yard dash, 4.51 is legit. The short shuttle at 2.66 is legit. You look at this, his get off the ball and get off is tremendous. Shuttle, change of direction. He's hitting elite on a lot of these areas, right? The only area where you look at that he's really not truly elite is his weight. He's about 225. But you think about it, he's a guy who you gave $250,000 guaranteed to,
guaranteed.
And so they wouldn't give him that and then just cut him, right? Unless he's completely terrible. So he scored an unofficial 909 RAS out of a possible 10. After his pro day, this ranked 229 out of 2,497 linebackers from 1987 to 2023. So let me just give you that. So from 87 to 2023. So that's a period of what? That's almost 40 some years, 43 years. 40 years.
Hold on, 13.
Let's do the math. We
36 years.
Almost 40 years. In 40 years, this guy's ranked 229th. That's crazy. Broad jump is 11, which is ridiculous. Vertical, I would think if you broad jump 11, your vertical would be higher than 34, but you can't be great at everything. I think we doing a little nitpicking here, and we just being greedy right now. And you look at what he was able to bring to 6'4", 222. Is a senior. Look at the snaps by position. So he lined up as a defensive lineman 70 times. He was in the box 471. He covered the slot cornerback a handful of times. He even played a little free safety and punt return. He was on extra.
And that's just 1 year, because keep in mind, most of his career, he was at Florida. He went to Utah for his final year, and his statistical output at Florida wasn't bad. So this is a universal athlete, And look, everybody, oh, well, the weight's a little up. No, I want no more weight on him. The more weight means a little bit slower he gets. This is a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Kind of like, remember the old term G monster back in the day?
Yeah.
When they didn't know what to call him, but it was like, you know what, wherever this area is, the threat is on this given play, we're probably going to put him there.
A second leading tackler for the University of Florida his junior year. So he had some production in the SEC. He goes out to the Pac-12. He's still really good competition out there. And you just take a look at it, man. His 83.9 pass rush grade. He shows he can get after the quarterback. Not too crazy in coverage at a 42.4. Obviously, that's not going to be his strong suit. But one thing we talk about, he can bring down the ball carrier. He can really get after the quarterback. And this guy is going to be a guy that I think is a real candidate for being a sleeper and that could potentially make this roster.
The Browns, and we all thought, and we were all, I think, led to believe, this is where I kind of, look, we have to understand that we may think we're reading sometimes between the lines with the Cleveland Browns. Look, I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Penn. Gee, neither did you. So if we think we're picking up from what they're saying, we probably just got to realize that maybe we're not. But they did get younger at linebacker. They did get faster at linebacker with this pick. It does make you wonder if they were on the fence, for the 7th round pick of, do we take him here? Mm-hmm. Or, do we feel he's going to go undrafted? And usually as fast as you get the news of a guy like this, you already had the contract worked out. It was only a matter of making sure he didn't get drafted, obviously. There were linebackers the Browns were interested in. They went earlier than expected, obviously. One of them went to the Ravens, which led the Ravens to not picking up the 5th-year option on Patrick Queen. So he will play out his final year in Baltimore. And that tells you everything you need to know about Patrick Queen, because they went out and traded for Roquan Smith, extended him, and then went out and drafted other linebackers this weekend. So it kind of lets you know where that is. That'll be an interesting name. I'm sure everybody will be over next offseason. Should the Browns sign Patrick Queen? But Diabate might be the guy. But, gee, the point of all of this that we got to this is, and this is maybe where I feel like we all maybe kind of fooled ourselves. You look at this and who is already here. JOK is here. Anthony Walker is here. I'm not saying Jacob Phillips is a lock by any means, but he is here. Matt Adams is here. Matt Adams formerly played for Bubba Ventrone on special teams. Matt Adams is here. Sione Takitaki. It's going to be a while. We don't know exactly when he's going to come back, but obviously he's on this team. Tony Fields, most likely on this team. Then you get to, obviously Diabate. Then you get to Kunasek. That puts you at 8 linebackers. I'm sorry. Well, it puts you at 8 linebackers. You normally don't keep 8. So, that's a lot there, because normally you're going to keep more D-backs than you're going to keep linebackers. Mm-hmm. So the question was, what would you draft a linebacker and then want to basically have to punt the pick because the kid didn't make your team? That's a tough – you don't want to do that, man. And look, we know the Browns had a great run. First few years, every draft pick made the team and then had at least some sustainability here. But now when it's getting really, really tight everywhere – it's hard to make sure that all your draft picks make this team. So, they went linebacker here. I think Diabate's got a great shot. And they had a UDF guy out of Georgia Tech who kind of does the similar things here. Diabate's same type of guy. These are hybrid athletes. The Browns maybe don't know exactly what their roles are. They can play some, slot. And guess what they're doing? They're just going to jam and release. And then they're going to look for a dump off to a running back, or the quarterback rolls their way. They're going to, pressure them. But it's a smart move, man. You're just trying to get more athletic. And a guy like Diabate brings that. And, we all know how it works. Somebody's probably going to get it and end up being injured, end up on IR, and then somebody gets a call and a spot and opportunity that we didn't see expected. But they're setting themselves up here with, again, like you said earlier, a lot of depth, a lot of competition, a lot of guys in every room. And there could be a case made, when you get down. It's not the only one I'm totally confident in is wide receiver. I think that is set, done. As long as nobody gets hurt, these are your 6. Everywhere else, it's tinkering. Something could break somebody's way. But, I think they put a really, really solid effort in trying to bring competition into every room this weekend, which is your ultimate goal. Every draft cycle, every offseason is trying to improve every room as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, you're just looking. I think this was a reset move. I think this was a reset type move, and I think actually it was an admission by the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns said something to us in terms of the overall draft philosophy. Was, look, we've made a few mistakes. We've made a mistake. We've made a couple of mistakes in the way we have evaluated people. So you look at the defensive
Wide
line
receiver
position
being
and
one
wide
of them.
receiver
Sure,
position.
absolutely.
They've also come back and done some things that said, look, we are now going after untraditional body types, untraditional age requirements that we used to have. Not saying that they're getting rid of their analytics, but they made some more traditional picks out there. And think about this: one of the things that people have always talked about, whether it was true or not or anecdotal, was the fact that the Browns never really truly embraced drafting Ohio State players. And a lot of people in the state just was like, hey.
Kind of funny that some story came that the Browns might be traveling a little bit down to Columbus to play, a little bit of football. And all of a sudden now they started drafting Columbus players. But, of course, Jimmy had to get a Rocky Top guy with the first pick of the draft. Made sure he got a Rocky Top boy.
Hey, listen. Oh, he was going to get somebody. And, hey, listen, Jalen Hyatt wasn't available. He's like, so what? I'm going to get a Tennessee receiver.
I'll tell you one thing here, though. One thing on Cedric Tillman. Last 2 games of his Tennessee career versus Alabama, 17 receptions, 268 yards against the big boys. Against the
you can't take that away.
You know what? I take it back. I take it back. It wasn't Alabama. It was 2-time defending champion Georgia. So have a day, kid. Have a day.
He did his thing. And
so we got to a lot here today. Look, the breaking news of today, the Browns have picked up the 5th-year option on left tackle Jedrick Wills. For anybody asking, yes, I've admitted to my L's on this. That's fine, whatever. Yeah. Guys, I'm married. I got 2 teenage daughters. I take L's every stinking day of my life. Do you think any other one matters to me? So that is what it is. He is Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 to 1, live YouTube every single day, on-air personality for 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop every Saturday morning. Make sure you're popping on in. Look, man, it's the spring. It's the summer coming. Saturdays, you're driving kids around, doing this, doing that. Make sure G Bush is part of your Saturday afternoon. Make sure you're following at G Bush 91. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. The show at Locked On Browns. To all the day oneers, you were the fabric and the foundation of this podcast. We appreciate you. For all the new traffic here over the last few days, last few months, stick around, subscribe, keep your notifications on. Ton of stuff coming day in, day out from the Locked On Browns YouTube page. And just so thankful, as always, for the opportunity here to do this that we do for you and for you all to be around. Close it in on 6,000 subscribers, over 750,000 or 700K listens here on YouTube. You guys are all fantastic. It's crazy. It's a fun ride. All that being said, guys, gals, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.